Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Julia and I make analysis of TV series and movies as well as video essays about pop culture. Today it's a review of the first season of The Umbrella Academy.
You should have locks on your windows.
I live on the second floor.
Rapists can climb.
You are so weird.
So the story begins when an eccentric and mysterious billionaire, Sir Reginald Hargreaves, adopts 7 children, all born at the same time, in the same day, from women who were not pregnant until the day before. Needless to say, these children possess extraordinary abilities, all except number 7, which is played by Ellen Page. As such, they become part of the Umbrella Academy, a place where they can train the powers and are sent on missions by their adoptive father. But Reginald's strict and sometimes even abusive methods eventually alienate the kids who, once grown up, start leaving the academy one by one. They each become adults who can barely function in the real world. Luther is in fact confined to the grounds of the mansion, never experiencing the outside world. Allison ends up using her power on her daughter and therefore losing custody of her.
I heard a rumor that you're really tired. And you want to go to sleep.
They are brought together after several years after the sudden death of their father. The pilot and the next 2-3 episodes are nothing special and are quite slow. The series finds it difficult to find a cohesive pace and borrows several tactics from the alternative superhero genre. Certain bits could be simply part of the next Deadpool movie. Both the use of music, which is often paradoxical compared to the scenes being watched, like using a love song during a fight scene, and the use of kinetic visuals using slow-mo and split screens will remind you of other stuff that you've seen before. In fact, the Umbrella Academy can be quite derivative, from dialogue to the effects, which are cinematic in scope. A character like Pogo, the butler/assistant of Mr. Reginald, does seem directly borrowed from the set of War of the Planet of the Apes. It also spends way too much time over-explaining the same things all over again. Mr. Hargreaves is an asshole that ruined their children's lives for no apparent reason. Vanya is constantly commiserating on how ordinary she is, especially compared to the rest of the family. All points that could have come across easily in more figurative ways. However, after a while, it starts getting interesting. Firstly, thanks to the characters of number 5, the only kid of the family without an actual name, played amazingly by Aidan Gallagher.
At the end, I had to project my consciousness forward into a suspended quantum state version of myself that exists across every possible instance of time.
That makes no sense.
Well, what if you were smarter?
He is the missing member of the Academy family that has mistakenly traveled through time till the end of the world.
The world ends in 8 days. I have no idea how to stop it.
And also thanks to the kid's nanny/mother, which is pretty on revealed as a robot who may or may not have evolved on her own. Unfortunately, as it is the case with other subplots, the initial mystery of the mother, whether she has become a sentient being or not, is later dropped without much explanation. That's because the Umbrella Academy spins too many plates at once and is clearly unsure to which subplots give the most time to. The other brothers are number 1, Luther, the Hulk of the situation, so to speak. Allison, a famous Hollywood star whose power is getting anyone to think or do whatever she says. Diego, who can curve knives in a way that never makes him miss the spot. And Klaus, whose ability to connect with the dead makes him, on one side, able to still see Sam, the only dead kid of the family, but on the other, messed him up in such a way that he can only drown his power with drugs.
Can I go now?
Have you overcome your fear of the dead?
Klaus is played by Robert Sheehan, Nathan from the British TV series Misfits, and if you enjoy him there, you will like him in this as well.
You're crazy. You got no idea.
The siblings eventually work as a team, kind of, to avoid the impending apocalypse, while at the same time fighting off the Commission, a sort of time and space institution whose job is to exterminate whoever gets in the way of even unwillingly change the course of natural events. These actions are brought forward by the Commission hitmen, which in the Umbrella Academy case are the Tarantino-esque Hazel and Cha-Cha. Borrowing from the source material of the Dark Horse series comics, I was expecting a little bit more weirdness. For example, in the comic book, one of the first and most recognizable scenes is when the Umbrella Academy is fighting a sentient Eiffel Tower. The series does give a small tribute to this iconic scene by having Allison and her daughter mentioning this in a scene, but visually it has been replaced in the pilot episode by a simple bank robbery. Some would say these changes are because of budget restrictions. Personally, I think it has more to do with the Netflix direction of trying to make the Umbrella Academy more mainstream. Certainly, having a bunch of kids fighting off the Eiffel Tower would have been alienating to some viewers. But generally, the series is pretty loyal to the source material and it does have potential for further seasons. There are several what I guess are supposed to be plot twists, which are instead very predictable. Spoilers ahead. First and foremost, that Vanya's boyfriend, Leonard Peabody, is in fact Harold Jenkins, a mentally unstable killer that wants to exterminate the family and in doing so manipulates Vanya, which, surprise surprise, has in fact powers and becomes the main villain of the series. Ellen Page is pretty good in the role, and it was certainly refreshing to see an alternative villain to the usual ones that the genre has used us to. But her reasoning is, despite being told a million times, too overplayed. Every episode uses these tactics of siblings not talking to one another, misunderstanding one another's intentions, which reminded me of the same methods that certain anime use in order to avoid certain characters to keep up with events that we as an audience already know. However, in cheesy anime, you kind of expect it and can deal with it. In a Netflix show, it ends up being quite frustrating in the long run. The end of the first season clearly sets up the second one, probably by transporting the siblings in an older timeline which has no actual weight to the overall plot line, so we will have a few filler episodes until the season will go back to the modern timeline in order to avoid Vanya to become the villain in the first place, and probably someone else will take her place, maybe one of the other kids born by the other women who gave birth to the Umbrella Academy kids as well. Music is one of the strongest parts of the series, featuring tracks from Queen and Radiohead, just to name a few. And honestly, I wasn't expecting anything else considering the involvement of Gerard Way, the frontman of My Chemical Romance. I was disappointed though that no MCR songs were used. I was waiting for the moment when Welcome to the Black Parade was blasted through during an action scene, and it never happened. Anyway, Umbrella Academy is, especially up until half of the episodes, flawed, full of tropes, and with way too much going on. However, it is still better than most superhero TV series that we've been used to, like Arrow or Supergirl. It does try and in certain parts manages to deliver a different view on the modern superhero. Stylistically, it reminded me a lot of another Netflix series, a series of unfortunate events, and in a way it also reminded me of The Haunting of Hill House, in the sense that it wants to focus more on the emotional, individual and collective traumas of a family rather than depending solely on the tricks of its genre. Horror in the case of The Haunting of Hill House, and superhero in the case of the Umbrella Academy. It also does so by subverting the usual timeline of the genre. Whether in typical stories superheroes become one after some sort of traumatic experience, after the death of the parents, and the explosion of the whole planet, the Umbrella Academy kids' trauma is a direct consequence of their time as superheroes. And as such, we start the story that they already left their costumes and have no intention of putting them back on. The strong focus given to each character, their backstory, current frame of mind, and the consequential fractured relationships between one another is too much to deal with in 10 episodes. And as such, scenes are not always translated in a way that makes the audience actually emotionally connect with them. But then sometimes touching moments materialize out of the blue. There is, for example, a particularly striking scene where a previously vanished Klaus reappears on the bus crying. The disappearance matched with the time-traveling suitcase states without the need of words that he's being transported in an older timeline where something went terribly wrong. The following scene of Klaus crying and wearing a military plate and a newfound tattoo hits us with the knowledge that he's been into some sort of war. If the Umbrella Academy works on the pace that has seemed to found in the latest episodes, delivers less exposition while working on the emotional connection between its characters, and continues with an alternative delivery of the genre, it will manage to avoid the superhero fatigue, and it will appeal to a larger audience in the upcoming season. In the end, the Umbrella Academy may not be a game changer, but it can be quite entertaining. What are your thoughts on this series? Let me know by leaving a comment below, and as usual, if you enjoyed this video and would like to see more from me, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell button. See you next time.